Hey guys, welcome back. Joe Brunsman, insurance broker to the stars. And today I'm talking about the big one, the $1 million MSP lawsuit. Now, I've seen a lot of reporting on this. I've seen a lot of opining about maybe what happened or didn't happen. So I actually read through the legal complaint and put together some lessons and questions that I think MSPs should be talking about and considering. Now, I'm not going to name the MSP in this because I don't want to kick a guy while he's down. He's definitely probably having a really bad week, if not really kind of a bad year by this point. All right. So with that, we're just going to go through and we're going to start talking about, hey, what are some of the lessons that we can learn from this to try and make the MSP community more resilient against these types of lawsuits? Now, these are allegations. This is the plaintiff, being the law firm, putting their best foot forward, trying to say, oh, we are angels. We have done nothing wrong. It's all this other guy's fault. All right. So once again, don't kick a guy while he's down, but I think there's some lessons that we can learn here. All right. A little bit of background with color commentary. So we're all singing off the same sheet of music here. Complaint was filed February 2024. Law firm's ransomware event occurred in February 2023. Now, that's an entire year. Why is this important? Well, that's important because within all of your tech E&O policies, you need to make sure you understand two main ideas. One, what are your reporting obligations if you have a claim? And two, what is a written notice of circumstance? Make sure you read that. Make sure you understand that. If you talk to me on Zoom, I've probably harped on that for quite some time. Okay. The other thing you need to know about this is, hey, let's say you're an MSP and you don't have insurance and you're watching this video and you're going, oh shit. Well, these things have retroactive dates. So you can't exactly buy a fire insurance policy when your house is already burning down. Okay. So if you don't have insurance yet, now is probably a pretty good time to do that. All right, so law firm said they started experiencing server login connectivity issues, so they reached out to their MSP. MSP said the problem was resolved, but the firm said they were still having problems. Now, according to the law firm, they said, hey, the MSP did not provide further information regarding network issues or cybersecurity risks. Now, this is something that I have other videos on my channel talking about lawsuits against MSPs. And with that, one of the common things that we always see is, hey, these MSPs, they're the subject matter experts. They're the, know-all gods of information technology, but they weren't being proactive, trying to make sure that I was being protected. All right. So whether if it's, like say a newsletter or at your QBR or both, or some other mechanism you have there, please make sure you're forward-leaning. Talk to your clients about those cybersecurity risks. Talk to your clients about what additional new controls are coming down the pike, what you're offering. Okay, it's not just a sales pitch. It's also assisting you with trying to fight back against some of this liability. Now, the firm said, hey, 2 days later, we had a major outage and then couldn't get access to our computer network or our server. So what happened? Well, the MSP said they determined that the firm's system was, quote, breached and hit with ransomware from Black Basta. Now, before we get into tizzy here, before people start freaking out, I tried to find breach notification letters from this particular law firm that says was impacted. Now, I couldn't find them. Maybe they're available somewhere or they're just not publicly available. But what you need to know is, generally speaking, the ABA, American Bar Association, definition of a breach is different than what you're going to find, and is actually a higher threshold than what you're going to find within the various state breach notification laws. All right, so just because they say breached doesn't necessarily mean that it's a data breach. It doesn't necessarily mean that information was stolen. It could be a breach according to lawyers, but not to the state breach notification standards. We just don't know. All right. So before we go out there and say, hey, how do they not see this happening? That all this information left, it's a little more complicated. Now, of course, a ransom demand was made. What happened? Firm goes, all right, let's restore from backups, but the backups had been deleted. So of course, a whole group of lawyers, they're probably going to be really, really pissed about that. Now, what happened? Firm says they were forced to pay the ransom. And then you'll see in here, even though the MSP was aware that plaintiff's network was experiencing a cybersecurity attack and that plaintiff was concerned about the security of its data, they failed to take steps to prevent the deletion of the cloud-based backups of plaintiff's data, which they had arranged with the particular backup vendor here. Now, this is one of the most popular videos I ever made. It's called MSP liability considerations after a client's cyber event. I would urge everybody here after this video, please go watch that. I'll put a link to it right above so that you guys can get a better understanding of, hey, what are kind of the guide rails that you should be considering when something happens at a client, even if it's not your fault. All right, just because it wasn't your fault doesn't mean it's not going to be your problem. So we'll see a little bit of that more here allegedly later, but there you go. We'll talk about it. Now, what did they think that the MSP was doing? What would you imagine that your clients who are not technical people think that you are doing? All right, this is why contracts are important. It says, hey, the law firm retained this MSP, etc., the backup vendor, to monitor its computer network system and servers, including network security, internet security to protect against viruses, malware, ransomware attacks, and other security risks, and to maintain the privacy and security of plaintiff servers, network and data, to provide system and technical support and maintenance, software, hardware updates, data backup, cloud-based backup system, etc. So what's the subtext here? They're saying, hey, this MSP was just supposed to be doing everything to keep us safe. There was never supposed to be any type of intrusion into our network. We hired them to wholly prevent that. Now, further complaints in the allegation. They're saying, hey, we relied on this MSP to engage in cloud backups. MSP allegedly didn't implement dual factor authentication before data could be deleted. MSP failed to have deleted files available for at least 30 days. So what does it sound like here? Hey, no dual or multi-factor authentication on the access of those backups and no immutable backups. That's a problem. MSP failed to detect the network intrusion. MSP failed to ensure the firm's network and cloud-based backups were sufficient to protect from intrusion, ransomware, and breaches. Now, hopefully, this MSP has a newsletter or some email communication where he can go back and he can say, hey, law firm, I told you backups alone were not sufficient. There's this new thing called an immutable backup. Highly recommend you get it. Let me know if you want to talk about it. It would cost roughly X or something to that degree. Hopefully he did that. Now, this goes back to another video I'll talk about here in a second, where what if you know that that client is just so damn cheap, there's no way they're ever going to buy immutable backups, but you don't want to end up in a situation like this. You still recommend it. You still do it in writing. Make sure you memorialize that. Keep a copy of it in your email or print it out if they're a particularly high-risk client just in case. So that way you can always go back and say, hey, absent all the technical back and forth, I told you there was a problem. I offered to help. You didn't want my help. I can't be held liable for that. All right? Now, what was in the contract? I'm reading through this. I'm going, okay, where is Exhibit A? Where is it? Turns out, no contract. According to the law firm, they entered into an oral contract. And you'll see what it says here. They agreed to pay the MSP to design, install, monitor, maintain, troubleshoot, upgrade. Everything under the sun. Now, why is that a problem? If you have a contract and it lays out just black and white, here's what we're doing, here's what we're not doing, here's what you're liable for, here's what we're not liable for, so forth and so on, you got ground to stand on. If you don't even have a contract, now it's he said, she said. And in this particular case, it's a law firm suing what appears to be a small MSP. But if you go to court, imagine it's like you go to a family barbecue and they think that you just know everything about every piece of technology by every vendor ever made, which is ludicrous, but that's what the average person thinks. So when a plaintiff goes, man, my MSP said he was going to do all these wonderful things and it was only going to cost me $100 a month. And by God, I got hit. What's a jury supposed to think? All right. Now, hopefully you get them on your side, but it's a lot easier to start with a contract. If you don't have a contract, go get a contract. If you're worried about what your clients are going to say, blame me. Blame the insurance company. That's easy. All right. What happened? Well, now the law firm wants, I put $1 million, but it's at least $1 million. Okay. At least $1 million. So my next question there was, what does the limitation of liability clause say? Well, of course, they didn't have a contract, so I don't think they have a limitation of liability clause anywhere. But 2 years ago, I put out this video right here, limitation of liability in contracts, saving grace or fool's errand. And I talk about why is a limitation of liability clause so important. So if you're one of those MSPs and you're watching this and you're going, oh my God, I don't have a contract. I obviously don't have a limitation of liability clause. Please stop watching my video. Well, wait till the end because I've got some recommendations for you. But after that, talk to an attorney, get something on the books. All right. What are some learning points here? 1, MSP contracts don't cost $1 million. Yes, I know it's an extra expense. I'm a fellow business owner, right? I run an insurance brokerage specializing in MSPs. That being said, man, you gotta have a contract. So I just put their names on the board in no particular order. Danny Aston, Don Geider, Brad Gross, Rob Scott. Please reach out to one of these people if you don't have a contract or your contract hasn't been updated in a while or you borrowed it off somebody from the internet. That stuff's going to get you in trouble. The field of liability here is evolving very, very quickly. So please don't end up in a bad situation. All right, next. Assess the risk and charge accordingly. Man, I bet that guy's sitting there going, I should have charged these guys way more, given the amount of stress. All right, so if you're out there, hey, you have law firm clients, cool. What's the cost of litigation to a bunch of attorneys? Their own free time, which is almost nothing. So charge for the risk accordingly. If you have clients that just refuse to take basic recommendations from you, if you have clients that are just dirt cheap and they're like, my God, there's no way we can afford MFA, it's getting to the point where you really need to consider just jettisoning those folks. Let them be somebody else's problem, or you're going to end up in potentially a very bad spot. All right. Now, the backup vendor is also named in this particular complaint. I wasn't going to name them, but their VP of communications actually reached out to me and they said, hey, we heard you're making a video on this. Do you want to know our side of it? So I said, hey, sure. Here's what they said. As a cyber protection company, we take security very seriously. No Acronis systems or networks were compromised. Acronis and its partner deny any responsibility for what happened to the law firm's systems and its data. Interesting part here. Our investigation revealed that access credentials may have been compromised outside of our systems and used to delete the firm's backup and execute a ransomware attack. Bam. There you go. They're saying, this is Acronis now, they're saying, hey, we did an investigation. Looks like the access credentials were compromised somewhere else. So what does that mean? I'm not really sure till we dig down deep into it. But once again, hey, even if you're sitting there and you're going, well, if that's true, the MSP is not responsible, case closed. Not that simple. You got a client out there who says they lost at least $1 million. 100% they're going to sue over that. They're going to try and recoup at least some of that money. Okay? So remember, just because it wasn't your fault doesn't mean it's not your problem. Trying to defend yourself on highly technical technology grounds in front of a jury of lay people is not a good place to be. All right, moving on here with their statement. Password protection is a responsibility of the customer. Acronis has not been served with the lawsuit and will not be commenting further on this litigation. So, man, that's kind of a bad day if you're working at Acronis and it's like this thing explodes and you're going, we haven't been served with a lawsuit. What lawsuit are you talking about? And then they had to scramble. So, man, hats off to the people at Acronis. Thank you, Acronis, for reaching out to me. I appreciate it. All right. Learning points. Please have an appropriate tech E&O policy and make sure you understand it. Specifically, what is your retroactive date? What's a written notice of circumstance? What are your obligations under a claim? What's the definition of a claim? Man, if you need help, hit me up on Zoom. I'll teach you for free. All right. Just please stay out of trouble. Next, contractually require your clients to carry cyber insurance. I put that out in a video 2-3 years ago. I caught some heat for it, but I think that it's held pretty firm and has aged pretty well. Where, hey, why are you contractually requiring your clients to carry cyber insurance? For instances just like this. Now, I'm not giving legal advice, but the general constitutional standard to bring a lawsuit against somebody, a claim, is you got to show 3 things. Injury in fact. Hey, I got hit with ransomware. Traceability. I never would have been injured but for the error or omission, which is why you get E&O insurance, of my MSP. In this case, he didn't recommend immutable backups. There wasn't dual factor at least authentication before my backups could be accessed. Therefore, I had to pay ransom. Therefore, I was down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Third element, the big part here is redressability. Now, why is that important? That is money. So what do you want to do? You want their cyber insurance company to be paying those big ticket items. Business interruption, ransom payment, attorney, forensics, negotiator, reputational harm, so forth and so on. All right. You want to push that back to their cyber insurer as opposed to your tech E&O policy. All right. So once again, if you got to blame somebody, blame me. All right. Now, ideally, that's going to be in your contracts. Next, this is a video I talked about. Get smart, defense in depth for your MSP. Please, you have to be proactive and push liability back to the client, back to that knucklehead end user who's cruising on Facebook on his work computer on his lunch break, clicking on God knows what, doing all types of things he's not supposed to be doing. Okay? That is a very boring, very dry, very crucial video that I think every MSP needs to watch to say, okay, what are the tried and true risk transference mechanisms that we can consider implementing for our MSP? Now, disclaimer, I'm not smart enough to think up of this stuff on my own. What happened was when I started in the insurance world, I worked mainly with financial services firms like CPAs, RIAs, etc. I just took what they've been doing for 20, 30 years, and I went, hey, here's a list of things we recommend for all these financial services firms. Let me translate that into MSP, ready to go. All right, so those things are very, very useful for you. They have been tested. Now, moving forward, man, this was only one side of the story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Danny Aston, good buddy of mine. I talked about him earlier. I'm going to bring him back, maybe to add some color commentary, answer any questions that you folks have, maybe comment on the reply if we see one from the MSP and from Acronis, so that way we can try and add even more value. All right, with that, hope you enjoyed it. Like, share, comment, subscribe, tell your friends. Right above me here, I'm going to put that defense in depth video so that you can watch it right after this. And over there, if you click on my beautiful face, you can subscribe to my channel. All right, folks, with that, stay safe.